Hi, today I'm going to be teaching you how to cook an incredible steak using the reverse sear method. It's super simple, as you'll see, and there really isn't much to it, so I hope you can follow along and try this out at home. What do we need? Not too many things, thankfully. You're going to want some kind of baking pan. I like to use something like this, doesn't have to be fancy. We need some kind of frying pan, cast iron preferred, but if you don't have one, that's totally fine. And we just need salt and pepper, nothing fancy, and some oil. High smoke point oil is preferred, like canola, avocado oil, but in a pinch, olive oil should be okay because the searing part will only be a couple minutes. So even if it gets a little smokier, that should be okay. Make sure to open your window though. We want a thermometer, ideally. It's not mandatory, but without it, there's too much guesswork, so I would highly recommend one. And last, but certainly not least, we want a good, thick steak. Emphasis on the thick. Here I have a New York strip. It is about three and a half fingers thick. It's real thick, and the marbling is quite good. So when you're out at the store trying to pick out a meat, pick maybe a ribeye or a New York strip for the reverse sear method, something at least 3 fingers thick, if possible, like that thick. If it's too thin, then I would not recommend the reverse sear method. Just cook it in the pan. So yeah, that kind of wraps up everything we'll need in order to cook this steak perfectly. The last thing you'll need though is a little bit of time and patience. Although the method is very simple and easy, it will take a little bit of time. So start preparing maybe an hour and a half before you want to eat, because this steak will be living in the oven for over an hour. Okay, it's time to prepare our steaks. First, preheat your oven to 200 Fahrenheit. That's a low temperature, I know, but it'll be worth it, low and slow. Grab some paper towels and be sure to pat the steak dry. You want to have as little moisture as possible going into the oven. And also be sure to pull the steak out of the fridge 20 or 30 minutes before you start preparing. It's technically a little less important with the reverse sear method compared to just fully pan searing it, but it's still advisable. It doesn't hurt to let the steak come up to room temperature slowly and gracefully. Once you've pat the steak dry, you're gonna season. Seasoning is super simple. No frills, salt and pepper. Season very generously, especially for a steak of this kind of thickness. When in doubt, season a little more. And don't forget to also season the sides liberally. In this steak's case, the sides are just about as thick as the steak is wide. As you can see, I've created a bit of a mess, but that's okay. So yeah, look at that steak. Take the steak and place it directly on the pan that'll go in the oven. I like to place the steak fat side down, no need to oil, just so that the heat from the pan itself doesn't impact the two main sides of the steak. So I like to just have the fat side down. It also helps render the fat down a little bit in advance. So walking over to the oven, which is preheated at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Open her up. I'm doing this with one hand, so bear with me. Okay, in goes the steak. And now we wait. For a steak of that size, you would want to wait maybe an hour, 10 minutes before checking the temperature. Seems like a long time, but trust me, it takes a really long time for a steak to get up to temperature when the oven's at just 200 degrees. We are targeting about 125-ish degrees Fahrenheit internal temperature when we pull it out of the oven. That is pretty much in the rare territory, but after we let it rest and sear it in the pan, it'll come up to a nice medium rare-ish. So now we wait. All right, it's been about an hour and 15 minutes, so a little longer than expected, but let's take the steak out of the oven and see what temperature it's at. So here's the steak. The uglier the steak when it comes out of the oven, the better. That's how you know you've done it right. So this looks really not appetizing at all. One-handed thermometer operation, right down the middle. And okay. We're looking at about 130 degrees, which is perfect. This steak is currently rare through and through, and we need to let it rest for a couple minutes. Once it's been about 5 to 10 minutes since you pulled the steak out of the oven, we are ready to sear. So, start the fire. It'll take quite a while for the pan to get up to temperature. You want the pan to be as humanely hot as possible. It's been a few minutes and the pan is beginning to smoke even though there's nothing on it. So at this point is when I put the high smoke point oil, a good amount of it too. Swirl it around, get the whole thing evenly coated, grab your tongs, and steak in. You hear that beautiful sound? You want to hear that when you put the steak in. If you don't hear sizzle, it's far from ready. And at this point, we're going to be doing about a minute and a half per side, up to 2 minutes per side maybe, if it's a really thick steak. But I am partially constrained also by the sensitivity of the smoke alarm in this apartment, so I'll probably give it about a minute 10 seconds per side. All right, a minute in, and let's give it our first flip. Look at that beautiful crust. Perfect. And we'll give it one more minute maybe. Now this is the point where a lot of people will add their thyme, rosemary, and even butter. That is totally optional. I personally like having the raw beef flavor only complemented by salt and pepper, but you know, if you want to, you can put rosemary, garlic, butter, anything else at around this stage in time. This is the point where
There's smoke in the living room. The alarm may sound. It's going to be loud. Smoke alarm silenced in the living room.
Sorry for that. All right, look at how smoky that is. So I've let it render on its fat side for a little while now, and I've killed the flame. This steak is pretty much done. So I can go ahead and grab my plate. Oh gosh. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. The smoke alarm got really mad at me. But I have pulled the steak out and we are ready to slice and take a look inside and see how we did. Take a look at that. That is 1.1 pounds of New York strip goodness. Alright, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new today. Apologies again about that smoke alarm. It's really annoying, but what are you gonna do? It's time to eat this delightful steak. Like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff, and see you later.